Today, we're diving into a feeling that I think we can all agree has become way too common. That feeling of being completely, totally, and utterly overwhelmed. We're going to break down slow productivity, a really powerful philosophy from the author Newport that might just be the perfect antidote to the burnout and constant busyness that seems to define modern life. So, does that hit a little too close to home? Yeah, I thought so. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's that constant hum of anxiety that so many of us feel. You know, the sense that you're always behind, that you're definitely forgetting something important, and that you're never, ever going to get it all done. But here's the good news. You are absolutely not alone in feeling this way. And believe it or not, there is a way out. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to diagnose what's going on with this overwhelm epidemic and bust the myth of busyness. Then we'll introduce the solution, slow productivity and its 3 simple principles. And finally, we'll get super practical with how you can actually reclaim your time and tie it all back to the big goal, living a deeper, more meaningful life. Okay, first things first, let's really dig into the problem. Why on earth does it feel like we're all just constantly drowning in a sea of tasks and notifications? Cal Newport has this absolutely brilliant analogy for this. He says our brains are cognitively out of shape. Seriously, just picture a world-class athlete who spends their off time smoking cigarettes and chugging milkshakes. It sounds crazy, right? But that's pretty much what we're doing to our minds. The nonstop flood of emails, Slack pings, and what he calls charged content on our phones has genuinely weakened our ability to just sit down and focus. So how did we get here? How did being busy become some kind of badge of honor? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at how our whole idea of productivity got completely twisted and broken. This really puts the problem in perspective. For pretty much all of human history, productivity was, well, it was easy to see. A farmer had their bushels of wheat, a factory worker had a line of finished cars. But for us, the modern knowledge worker, what's our output? A cleared inbox? A day packed with meetings? The metrics have gotten so vague. And this, right here, is the trap. It's what Newport has coined pseudo-productivity. Because we don't have a clear way to measure our actual value, we've started using visible activity, just plain old busyness, as a stand-in. Think about it for a second. Answering emails late at night, a calendar that looks like a game of Tetris, being the first to reply in a group chat. It looks like you're working hard, so it feels productive, even if you're not actually creating anything of lasting value. So, if pseudo-productivity is the disease, then what's the cure? Well, this brings us to the core idea we're talking about today, slow productivity. And it's a much more thoughtful, sustainable, and frankly, a more effective way to think about your work, and maybe even your life. Now, let's be super clear here. Slow does not mean lazy. Not at all. It's about working in a way that lets you produce really high-quality stuff without feeling like you're about to snap. It's a whole philosophy built to help you feel genuinely proud of what you do, to spend your precious time on things that actually matter, and to finally get rid of that constant, nagging, anxious feeling of being overloaded. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it? The whole philosophy really boils down to 3 simple but incredibly powerful core principles. Principle number 1, do fewer things. But the most important part of that sentence is the last 2 words, at once. See, when you say yes to way too many projects at the same time, every single one of them creates what Newport calls administrative overhead. You know, the endless emails, the meetings, the check-ins, all the stuff you have to do just to keep the project moving. The more you pile on, the more your day is just spent talking about work, with no time left over to actually do the work. Doing this means you have to do something he calls facing the productivity dragon. It's that kind of scary but totally necessary moment where you just admit to yourself, I can't do it all. You can't learn a new language, train for a marathon, renovate your house, and crush it at a new job all at the same time. You have to make conscious, deliberate choices about where your very limited time and energy are going to go. The second principle is to work at a natural pace. This is all about pushing back on this crazy idea that everything needs to be done at a frantic, breakneck speed. We set these totally arbitrary, aggressive deadlines for ourselves, and then we feel completely stressed out when we can't meet them. But here's the thing. Great work, the stuff that really matters, often just needs time to breathe and develop. And this gets to a huge problem. Newport argues that most of us don't write to-do lists, we actually write wish lists. We cook up this fantasy version of a perfect day where we somehow manage to get 3 days worth of stuff done, and then we feel like total failures when reality, happens. A real to-do list, a real plan, has to be based on the hours you actually realistically have in a day. And finally, we have principle number 3, obsess over quality. When you shift your main focus from the quantity of things you're churning out to the quality of your work, something amazing happens. First, all that frantic busyness of pseudo-productivity just starts to look a lot less appealing. And second, as you get known for doing incredible work, you gain more power, more leverage to say no to things like pointless meetings or low-value tasks. It gives you back control of your time. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do we actually make this happen? Let's get into some real practical steps you can take to start reclaiming your time, like right now. This single mental shift can change absolutely everything. I mean it. Stop trying to work from an endless, overwhelming list of tasks. Instead, give every single thing you have to do a specific home on your daily schedule. The technique is called time blocking, and it's actually really simple. First, you just capture everything you need to do in one spot. Then, you give each task a realistic time estimate. After that, you drag and drop those tasks onto specific blocks in your calendar. And the last step is maybe the most important. You have to accept that your plan is going to break. Things come up. The goal isn't to have a perfect schedule. It's just to be intentional about where your time is going. Now, to make this even more powerful, you can start to categorize your work. Deep work, that's the high-value, mentally demanding stuff that needs your full, uninterrupted focus. And shallow work, that's all the other little things like emails, calls, running errands. By scheduling specific blocks for deep work, you protect the time and energy you need to do your most important stuff. And hey, if you need a little extra motivation to give this a shot, here it is. The feedback from people who actually adopt time blocking is pretty staggering. They consistently report a twofold increase in what they're able to accomplish. That's double the output, often with less stress, just by being deliberate with your time. All right, let's zoom out for a second. Because this was never really just about productivity hacks. This was about connecting all of these habits to a much bigger, more important goal: living a deeper and more meaningful life. Newport calls this the deep life, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a life that you intentionally design around the things you value most, while you systematically get rid of the things that you don't. Slow productivity isn't really the goal in itself. It's the tool that you use to carve out the time and mental space you need to actually live that deeper life. And that brings us to our final thought. Look, this isn't just about learning something new. It's about actually doing something different. So as we wrap this up, I want you to really sit with this question. Looking at your own life, your own schedule, your own habits, what is one thing, just one, that you will do less of this week to make a little more room for what truly matters to you?